This man is a bit special, Lise. He felt that Xiao Yu was being somewhat wronged. Xiao Yu was only 26 years old, older than Su Miaoyan, but when compared to that 9th prince from Su Yingshu's family, he was still somewhat younger, wasn't he? And their young master had only delayed getting married because of his business dealings, not to the point of becoming the old man Su Yingshu described. Xiao Yu's features were cool and collected, and on his face that seemed to show no emotion, his thin lips parted slightly, the words of the 9th princess consort, "I fear the 9th prince has not heard. When I have time, I will certainly have a good talk with his highness." Su Yingshu raised an eyebrow, thinking of tattling to his highness. "As you like. But let me tell you, Xiao Yu, keep away from my sister. You sly old man, just find a madam from the Xiao family for yourself. Our miss from the Marquise Manor, you'd best not touch. Otherwise, they would turn from partners into enemies." A dark shade crossed Xiao Yu's eyes, lending them a dim and indecipherable emotion. "Sister, you misunderstand. Brother Yu has been very kind to me. He teaches me to read and write, and it's far more interesting than what my tutors teach." Su Miaoyan bounced to Xiao Yu's side, as docile as a little kitten. And judging by her demeanor, she seemed to have gained a bit more poise and composure than her usual cleverness, as if she truly had learned quite a lot. Su Yingshu's tone relaxed somewhat. "Good, your brother Yu has taught you well. But, Miss Miaoyan, can you come back with me to the Marquise Manor now? Grandpa will be back soon, and your father, my third uncle, will probably return to court soon too. If you're still staying here when they come back, they'll break your legs." "What? Grandpa and my father are coming back soon?" Su Miaoyan shuddered with fright, hastily clutching at Xiao Yu's sleeve. "Brother Yu, I really have to go back now, or if Daddy finds me here, I'll be in real trouble." She was shrewd and knew how to charm any elder, but she feared her father most of all. Stern, a man who at no time would show favoritism, no matter how she played coy or acted cute, it was useless. A faint sense of reluctance flashed through Xiao Yu's eyes as his hand gently rested on her head. Compared to his proud and indifferent demeanor towards Su Yingshu just a moment ago, he now spoke to her tenderly. "All right." He arranged for someone to escort Su Yingshu and Su Miaoyan back. He even personally saw them off at the gate of Qilin Garden. Su Yingshu was always observing Xiao Yu's expression. This man seemed to have a special feeling for Su Miaoyan. Special enough for her to take heed. But on the surface, he appeared to treat Su Miaoyan merely as a child. He didn't stop her when she came to take her away. Xiao Yu watched their carriage leave, the expression in his eyes retracted, becoming profound and indifferent, yet holding an inscrutable darkness that others could not discern. Xiao Sai stood beside him, heaving a sigh. Even Lady Yin couldn't take Miss Miaoyan away, and yet she went away with the 9th princess consort. His young master must feel reluctant. Xiao Yu's voice was cold. Su Yingshu couldn't take her away because she herself wanted to go back. "It was only then I let her." In the end, he had not yet been able to give her a proper status. However, there will be time in the future. In the Marquise Manor, when Su Yingshu brought Su Miaoyan back, Su Han had already prepared a table full of sumptuous food. With no elders present, Su Han lifted her cup and said with a light smile, "Today, we 3 sisters will enjoy good company." "Wow, Sister Han is drinking. I want to drink too." Su Miaoyan poured out the fruit juice in her cup and quietly filled it with wine. Su Han's change Lise. Su Yingshu rapped her on the head. "What are you doing drinking, kid? Pour it out for me." "I won't pour it out. I want to drink it. Besides, my birthday has passed. I'm 14 now. I'm not a child anymore. Brother Yu said that in another year I'll come of age. Once I'm of age, I'll be a grown miss." Su Miaoyan protected her wine glass, pursing her lips forcefully. "Hiss. It's always Brother Yu this, Brother Yu that. Su Miaoyan, has Xiao Yu drugged you? You too haven't, by any chance?" Just as Su Yingshu was about to voice her suspicions, Su Han quickly clutched her hand. "Yingshu, don't talk nonsense. Miaoyan is still young, but she knows her limits. She wants to drink, so just pour her a little. It's fine." Su Han came to Su Miaoyan's defense over the cup of wine, and Miaoyan quickly drank it down. "So spicy." She coughed once, the liquid sliding down her throat, but it really took her by surprise. giving her an unprecedented thrill. Ha ha ha. Seeing her little mannerisms, Su Han couldn't help but laugh out loud. Su Yingxue held her cup at the side, looking at Su Han and feeling that she was very different from usual. In the past, she always adhered strictly to the rules of propriety, the model among young ladies from noble families, meticulous in thought and never putting a foot wrong. Having not seen her for several months, she had become much more cheerful. It was as if they had switched roles. Before, it was always Su Han who urged her and Su Miaoyan to stop messing around. Now, Su Han seemed more indulgent towards Su Miaoyan. Sister Shui, why aren't you drinking? Don't tell me your alcohol tolerance is even worse than mine. Su Miaoyan deliberately squinted her eyes, teasing Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue was about to drink, but when the wine reached her lips, she felt a bit nauseous. Never mind, switch it for juice for me. I'm not feeling great with the smell of alcohol today. Even Sister Shui has a day when she doesn't drink. Let me drink for you. As Su Miaoyan spoke, she went to snatch her wine cup, but before she could grab it, Su Han had already drunk Su Yingxue's wine. Her cheeks were slightly red. Since you're not drinking, I might as well drink some more with Miaoyan. The dinner was enjoyed heartily, and the drinks were enjoyed even more. Su Miaoyan became drunk and was carried back to sleep soundly. Su Han was also drunk, and when Su Yingxue wanted to give her some sobering medicine, she pushed it away. Don't bother. It's rare for me to be drunk. I don't want to sober up so quickly. Sister, what's happening to you? Su Yingxue noticed the change in Su Han but didn't understand why it was so significant. Dismissing Jifan and Jilan, Su Han linked arms with Su Yingxue and staggered alongside her through the courtyard, a bitter smile on her face. Yingxue, do you also feel that sister no longer seems like the noble young lady from before, the role model among young misses? Su Yingxue nodded. Yes, sister, you've changed from before. Getting drunk, finding a husband, managing a store, such things were never part of Su Han's prior actions. In everyone's eyes, she was the unattainable white moonlight, admirable but only to be looked up to from afar, out of reach. But I feel that the way I'm living now is the most comfortable and enjoyable. Before, I lived for the family, for the identity of the eldest young miss of the Su family, for my husband, for the Marquise manor. Not once was it for myself. The unbearable sadness in her eyes flowed out with her tears. Recalling the days of the past, although she was praised and envied by everyone's gazes, did she truly benefit from it? Becoming a ghost to protect Ulysse, once she left those high-end poetry banquets and gatherings, what did people say about her, Su Han, behind her back? Those who envied her perfection called her a pretender. Those she had kindly helped accused her of feigning her goodwill. When she broke ties with Chu Xiaotian, she was doused with the kind of filth she hadn't experienced in 20 years, a weight that pressed down on her, leaving her gasping for air. It nearly drove her to a deathly corner. She was simply trying to survive, to fight her husband's family for the right to keep living and to protect her own family. But in the end, she was labeled a wanton woman, shameless, by others. Some even mocked her, saying that she could never marry again, that no one would want a heartless and cruel woman who had left her husband's family with nothing. But none of this was her fault. Looking at her tear-streaked face, Su Yingxue felt somewhat heavy-hearted. So, sister, did you start the shop and choose Song Qingyi to fend off the rumors and secure your future as your husband? It sounded somewhat forced. And even unbearably heartbreaking. No. Su Han wiped away her tears, took a deep breath, and a smile appeared on her face. I did it for myself. I can run the business of the Thousand Jiao Pavilion well. Those women can target me, but they can't refuse the discounts and high-quality goods I offer. As for Song Qingyi, he genuinely likes me. He treats me well. Never has a man guarded me as sincerely as he does. He has been utterly selfless, paying any price to protect me. When he heard my father was looking for someone to protect me, he turned down a promotion to stay by my side. Whenever Chu Xiaotian harassed or even insulted me, he would stand against him every time, even getting injured by Xiaotian. But he said he didn't care, he would never let me be sad. And then there were those young misses from rich families who insulted me. A bittersweet memory surfaced in her heart. She was ridiculed at gatherings, called second-hand goods, someone who wouldn't be able to marry and should spend the rest of her life in a temple. Hearing this, Song Chengyi drew his sword against them. He said, "If you wish to die, utter one more word against Miss, and my sword is ready to sever your head." Ah! At the banquet, the group of frightened young misses from rich families ran off in an embarrassing state, daring not to insult her again. At that moment, Su Han's heart pounded fiercely in her chest. After Song Chengyi had chased those people away, he asked her cautiously, "Miss, did I frighten you?" Su Han shook her head, her eyes full of emotion. "Junior Officer Song, would you really act against them? They are all daughters of official families." There was a hint of probing in her question. Even though she knew Song Chengyi might say something disheartening, she still wanted to hear it. He replied, "If they continue, I will indeed take their heads to ensure their silence forever." Shocking. That's the only feeling Su Han had at that moment. "Killing them, you won't get away either. You will die," Su Han exclaimed, astounded. Was this man willing to protect her reputation with his own life? With his lips tightly pressed, Song Chengyi said, "I know, but that way, I would have to protect Miss as a ghost from then on. Please do not be afraid. Marry only Song Chengyi Lise, to protect her as a ghost." It was this sentence that made Su Han make up her mind. Her heart was pleased with him, and she wanted to marry him, to be his wife. It's really surprising that Song Chengyi can love sister so much. Su Yingxue and Su Han leaned against each other under the moonlight, smiling contentedly. Su Han's eyes were smiling, even gentler than the moonlight. "Yes, all the love and protection I dared not wish for or accept before, he has given me. Therefore, no matter what he looks like or what status he holds, I'm willing to marry him wholeheartedly. This marriage, I think uncle and aunt won't refuse." Su Yingxue was very happy for her. Speaking of her parents, Su Han felt some distress. "Father doesn't really mind Song Chengyi's appearance, admiring his abilities and agrees with me being with him. But mother, she cares about Song Chengyi's poor background, the lack of family support, and no achievements to his name, fearing that he won't be able to protect me in the future." Qin Wan, being from a prominent family, naturally wanted to find a powerful marital home for Su Han to make up for her previous neglect. Song Chengyi's looks were unimpressive, and his background was not great. Whenever Su Han brought him up with Qin Wan, she would frown. Even when she was harassed by Chu Xiaotian, letting Qin Wan know, she became even more worried. Worried that if Chu Xiaotian came to make trouble in the future, Song Chengyi might be harmed by Chu Xiaotian in secret. By then, if she became a widow, her latter half of life would be even more uncertain. "Sister, don't worry." Su Yingxue held Su Han's hand, her eyes bright as stars. "Song Chengyi has exceptional abilities. He will definitely achieve great things in the future. Chu Xiaotian is no match for him." In her previous life, before she died, Song Chengyi had already begun to show his edge. Now that he had Su Han, in order to protect her, he would only hasten and work even harder to improve himself. He would surely achieve success even faster. As for Chu Xiaotian, Su Yingxue rolled up her sleeves. "Sister, if Chu Xiaotian comes to find you again, you come and tell me. I'll let him know the consequences of a toad wanting to eat swan meat." Chu Xiaotian, that damned toad. If he comes again, she wouldn't mind causing the prince's mansion in Yongan County to have no heirs. Su Han chuckled softly. "All right." The two sisters supported each other as they walked to their own courtyards. Su Yingxue wanted to convince Su Han to sleep together, but Su Han claimed she had a headache from the alcohol and wanted to rest alone. Su Yingxue didn't force her. She had just laid down in her own courtyard when Zhifen quietly woke her. "Miss, that. The Prince of Yongan County has come again, still refusing to leave the Marquise Manor." Refusing to leave? Su Han rubbed her aching head. "Tell someone to drive him away." Perhaps she had spent too much time with Su Yingxue, but Su Han's approach had also become more forceful. Zhifen was somewhat surprised, but still followed Su Han's orders to shoo Chu Xiaotian away. But Chu Xiaotian was clearly determined not to leave without seeing Su Han. After being driven away multiple times, he kept coming back. Zhifen had no choice but to wake Su Han again. "Miss, the regional prince refuses to leave. Has been driven away many times and is still outside the Marquise Manor. He says he's not afraid of being seen, he just misses Miss and wants to see you one more time. even bringing a gift for you. Su Han propped herself up on the bed, took a few deep breaths to settle her mind, then dressed and stepped out into the moonlight. Zhifen protected her closely, following every step. Seeing her come out, Chu Xiaoshen's handsome face immediately lit up with a smile. "Haina, you still came to see your highness. Your highness." Humble and submissive Lise, he excitedly wanted to go up and embrace Su Han, but was pushed back by Su Han's cold voice. "Your highness, please show some respect." "Show some respect," Chu Xiaotian smiled wryly and helplessly. "That's right, you are no longer the regional princess, and I should not be touching you, but I really miss you, Haina. Forgive me and come back home with me, okay? Forgive. Go back home." Su Han's lips curled up with a mocking arc, a trace of disdain spilling from her eyes. "Your highness, you think that since I have not held the past entanglements against you, I am still as easy to manipulate as before and that you can overstep your bounds with me, right?" "I didn't." Caught off guard and seen through, Chu Xiaotian suddenly felt somewhat guilty. It was just as Su Han had said. He took advantage of her unwillingness to lose her temper at him, so he harassed her relentlessly, step by step pressuring her, thinking that he could eventually take her back to the prince's mansion. Chu Xiaoshen's reaction was within Su Han's expectations. Even the thoughts behind each of his expressions were crystal clear to her. "Chu Xiaotian, you have always thought that Su Han still loves you, even if you almost killed me, left me bruised all over, humiliated me thousands of times, I would still return to your side, grovel before you, right?" "No. I have never seen you as groveling. I know you acted that way because you admired me. Your toleration of my mother and sister was all because of your deep love for me. But Haina, I realize my mistake now. My mother and sister have also been exiled 3,000 miles away. They can never return to Jiangdu City again. Isn't this punishment enough? You should come back with me now." Chu Xiaotian reached out to take her hand, but Su Han swiped her sleeve, and he didn't even touch the hem of her garment. Chu Xiaoshen's brow furrowed deeply. "Haina, what more do you want? I have already humbled myself to ask for your forgiveness. How much longer will you stay angry? Do you really want me to kneel before you and admit my wrongs?" Chu Xiaotian had only mentioned it casually, but Su Han replied with a slight smile. "All right, if your highness kneels and apologizes, then I'll consider what you've proposed." "Su Han, don't go too far. How can you make me kneel to you?" Chu Xiaotian instantly became furious, his face the color of iron. "A man's knees bear gold, and besides, considering my status, how can I kneel to a woman? Why not? Kneeling to admit one's errors is nothing out of the ordinary. Or is it that your highness believes you are truly blameless, and that your apology is merely because you've heard the news of my impending marriage and cannot stand it?" A glint of shrewdness flashed through Su Han's eyes. In the past, Chu Xiaotian also pestered her on the street, at the Thousand Jiao Pavilion, on quite a few occasions. But each time, a single look of disdain from her was enough to break his confidence. His pride would not allow him to continue being humiliated in public. However, this time, he had been waiting at the door of Marquise Manor every night, persisting for 3 or 4 days already. She had only come out to see him because of this. Presumably, it was hearing about her and Song Chengyi that had provoked him. A look of disgust appeared in Chu Xiaoshen's eyes. He hated Su Han's shrewdness. The Su Han of the past, who always displayed obedience and tenderness towards him, was who he missed. That was why, time and again, he put his dignity aside and came back to find her. But now, she looked as though she could see right through him without him having to say a word. It made him particularly uneasy. In her impression, she could make amends. Lise, he held an exquisitely crafted sandalwood box in his hand and handed it to Su Han. "This is the golden hairpin that you once said you wanted. Your Highness has procured it for you, having spent considerable manpower and resources. Song Chengyi, I'm afraid, couldn't give this to you, could he?" Contempt was evident in his gaze, as was his disdain and scorn for Song Chengyi. The pride ingrained in his bones made him utterly disbelieve that Su Han, having once been his regional princess and witnessed the imperial majesty, would lower herself to marry an unknown junior officer. Su Han took the box from him and upon opening it, she saw a jade peony hairpin, a clever piece of craftsmanship that turned jade into the pattern of peonies. It was a treasure of the imperial family, inaccessible to outsiders who could spend their whole lives without the chance to even catch a glimpse. Suhan had seen the Empress wear it before and had felt some envy at the time. After returning home, she told Chu Xiaotian about it, and Chu Xiaotian said, "This is a treasure of the imperial family, not even personally owned by the Empress. It can only be borrowed for grand banquets and must be returned to the treasure vault afterward. If the Empress herself cannot have it, how could you possibly obtain it?" Su Han's lips twisted slightly at the memory. Chu Xiaoshan's words, "How could you possibly obtain it?" were still fresh in her mind. Yet now that very item was in her hands, which felt like a particularly cruel irony. Su Han closed the wooden box and handed it back. "I once wanted this object, but not anymore, just as with your highness, once heartily adored, now merely a stranger. I hope we will not disturb each other again." The box was thrust back into his hands, and Chu Xiaotian stared at it, his brow furrowed deeply. "Su Han, do not be too proud. Other than returning to your highness' side, what path do you have? Song Chengyi is as ugly as a ghoul. He has been seriously wounded on the battlefield. Who knows how long he will live? By staying with him, you are just waiting to become a widow." Slap. The crisp sound of a slap echoed loudly in the quiet night. Jifen and the others standing behind Su Han were all stunned. The always graceful and highly self-controlled Su Han had slapped someone. The slap was on Chu Xiaotian. Su Han withdrew her hand, and even the act of slapping bore elegance, but her gaze was fierce. "Chu Xiaotian, say what you will about me, but if you curse my future husband again, I will make you pay the price." Su Han. Chu Xiaoshan's eyes widened as his heart thumped wildly in his chest. Not a single hair on his body could believe that Su Han, the one who once loved him to the bone, had actually raised a hand against him. "I am here, your highness. What would you like to do? Want to strike back?" "I'm afraid that's not possible. With many palace guards from Marquise Manor, they would not let your highness leave easily after laying a hand on me again. But if your highness chooses not to strike back, then I will not waste my time with you. Please leave the Marquise Manor." Su Han's defiance was overwhelming, her delicate frame belied the formidable aura she radiated. Su Han had already turned around when Chu Xiaotian seized her sleeve in desperation. "Heina, don't be angry with your highness. If you want to hit then. Your highness is willing to apologize to you, but, could you please not marry Song Chengyi?" Su Han's actions tonight were completely beyond his expectations. His memory of her, the Su Han he thought he knew, was someone he still believed he could win back. Because she used to love him so deeply. Before their marriage, she had already given her heart to him. After they married, she tried even harder to be a good wife and mother, accommodating and considerate at every turn, dedicating herself to his well-being and the welfare of the prince's mansion. Breaking free from the bonds of Lovelace, a woman who loved him like that, even if she had to break off their engagement because of his mother and sister, still couldn't forget him in her heart. How could she marry someone else so quickly? He couldn't bear it, she shouldn't. Su Han's expression remained calm. She had thought her heart would beat wildly at this moment. However, now facing Chu Xiaotian, her voice was soft yet resolute. "I can't, my marriage to Song Chengyi is settled, we're just waiting for grandfather to return, then he can prepare our wedding date." Even if her mother still somewhat disapproved of her and Song Chengyi, she would find a way to persuade her. "You can't marry him. Heina, your highness still loves you, you can only marry me, not him." Chu Xiaoshan's eyes were bloodshot. Su Han's repeated rejections were nothing compared to her firm declaration to marry Song Chengyi, which broke his heart. If she married Song Chengyi, he could never bring her home again. He would lose her completely. "Love me?" Su Han looked at Chu Xiaoshan's current state and let out a cold laugh in her heart. Back when she was married to Chu Xiaotian, she ironed his clothes every night before bed and scented them with spices, keeping him spotlessly clean and carrying her fragrance. But now he looked miserable, covered in dust, without a trace of her scent on him. Su Han felt that she was finally free. Free from a constraint. The constraint of once loving Chu Xiaotian deeply. Su Han exhaled softly. "Chu Xiaotian, whether you love me or not doesn't matter anymore. I, Su Han, no longer love you. Song Chengyi is more suitable for me. This man, in terms of status and position, was inferior to Chu Xiaotian, and she hadn't even seen his true appearance. But the affection and care he gave were what Su Han had always wanted. Su Han. Chu Xiaoshan's eyes were bloodshot, his hand trembled violently as he tried to touch Su Han's hand. Even if I am defeated, you owe me a reason. I, the Prince of Yong'an County, in what way am I inferior to that ugly and useless junior officer, Song Changyi? Had never wanted for anything since childhood. Nor had he ever been so humiliated. Song Changyi, ugly as a ghost. And so coarse and crude. By what right? By what right does he get to marry the Su Han I love? How dare he defile her? I don't want to hear your highness slander my future husband anymore. But if your highness insists on an answer, then let me tell you, I'm marrying him because he loves me. Su Han had calmed down, but her words ignited all the rage in Chu Xiaoshan's heart. He loves you. Don't I love you too? I, Chu Xiaotian, have always lived in luxury, not inferior to any prince, and even if not as powerful as the 9th prince, my 4th-rank officer position surpasses that of other court official. I have also fought in battles, I too have come through life-and-death struggles. I am so outstanding, yet I still have to grovel in front of you. My mother and sister, they were exiled for bullying you, and I know it was their fault, so I erased the incident, only asking for you to return by my side. To get this jade peony hairpin for you, I traded away the military power and soldiers. I have sacrificed so much for you. Do you still think I don't love you as much as he does? Chu Xiaotian was too agitated, he even forgot to refer to himself as Your Highness. Every word revealed his affection for Su Han. After hearing his speech, Su Han tugged at her lips. It sounds like Your Highness loves me very much. She wants to show blatant favoritism. Lise. Chu Xiaoshan's expression softened, and he smiled, thinking Su Han would give him a chance. Haina, it's good that you understand. Your Highness truly loves you, so don't marry him. Come back with Your Highness. He would always love her from now on. All right, if Your Highness will do one thing for me, then I will agree to your request, Su Han said in a soft voice. Jifen, standing behind her, widened her eyes. Miss, how could you agree to go back with the Prince of Yong'an County? Wasn't this just jumping back into the fire pit? As she was worrying, she heard Su Han say, at the last banquet, I was humiliated by Miss Xia family. I want Your Highness to avenge me by killing her. What? The young Miss Xia family? How can that be? Between you women, it was nothing more than some harsh words. She might have been overly aggressive, but how can you harbor the intention to kill? This is not. Before he could finish saying not right, Chu Xiaotian had already realized that something was amiss. Su Han said with a cold laugh, Your Highness, do you still dare say you love me? At the previous banquet, when young Miss Xia family humiliated me, Song Changyi didn't say another word and drew his sword for me. Had I not stopped him, young Miss Xia family would be nothing but bones now. Does Your Highness still think you love me more than Song Changyi does? Just hearing that I was humiliated, Song Changyi was willing to draw his sword and kill for me, no matter who that person was. And what are you thinking, Your Highness? Your first thought is never for me, it is to accuse me, to counsel me. This is righteousness, the vision a regional prince should have. But it is not love. Love is to be willing to make enemies of the entire world for her sake. It's a blind and unwavering support. These are things Chu Xiaotian could never give her. If it had been before she met Song Changyi, she might have been moved by the current Chu Xiaotian, even slightly muddled into wanting to be with him again. But she had met Song Changyi, a man who loved her without looking back, who was willing to fight to the death to protect her, to cherish her. In front of Song Changyi, Chu Xiaoshan's feelings for her were utterly insignificant. Your Highness, Su Han does not seek glory or wealth, nor a noble status. I only wish for someone to blatantly favor me, to cherish and protect me no matter what I do, and to shield me from the outside storms and frost with his body, ensuring that spring surrounds me at all times. After these words, Su Han took a deep breath. The night breeze was cool but carried a fresh scent. This time, Chu Xiaotian did not try to hold on to her. He looked at his empty hands, feeling extremely unwilling, even desperately wanting to grasp onto Su Han, but in the end, he did not take another step forward. He never knew what Su Han wanted was not the title of regional princess, not the praise of everyone, but his exclusive affection and partiality. Exclusive affection. Partiality. These two words, upon reflection, truly are beautiful. 2 days later, the great army returned to the capital. Chu Jinling led the civil and military officials to personally welcome them at the city gate. When he saw Chu Yihan approaching on horseback, he knelt down and proclaimed loudly, "Nephew congratulates the imperial uncle on his victorious return. Long live the imperial uncle. The 9th prince returns in victory. Long live your highness. Your highness is valiant." At the city gate, the cheers of the populace almost broke the sky, greatly admiring Chu Yihan's heroic demeanor. The citizens all followed the rules, kneeling by the roadside. No officials or soldiers blocked their way, and no chaos ensued. Wherever Chu Yihan passed, there was a neat line of kneeling obeisance. If he abandoned Ju Chao and Chen Feiyang to experience this special foot massage, wouldn't he be neglecting Ju Chao again? If you're not going, then I won't go either. Chen Feiyang wasn't a fool, he naturally noticed some clues. Besides, there would be plenty of opportunities to experience it later, so there was no need to rush at the moment. Just as the three were about to lie down and rest while waiting for Xiao Yang and Jiang Yu, they saw the two of them walking in looking refreshed, especially Jiang Yu, who seemed to be walking on air. It seemed they had a great time. "Hey, back already? Looks like everything was arranged well." Ju Chao teased them. Hearing Ju Chaos words, both of them stiffened. They had seen Chen Feiyang visit their room earlier, so they assumed Ju Chao and Li Yaro knew what services they had enjoyed. The thought of Ju Chao accidentally revealing it later made them dread the idea of facing the consequences. "Ahem, it's getting late, we should head back." Xiao Yang, as the elder brother, was the one everyone listened to. After a brief packing up, they took the elevator out of the Chang'an Club. In the parking lot, they exchanged a few words before preparing to go their separate ways. "Xiao Chao, wait a moment, I need to talk to you about something, and Jiang Yu too." Just as Ju Chao was about to get into his car, he heard Xiao Yang's voice and closed the car door, walking briskly over. "Brother Yang, is there something else?" Jiang Yu also approached. Xiao Yang glanced at Jiang Yu, then back at Ju Chao, and said, "Xiao Chao, tonight we'll just have a simple meal and chat over tea afterward, nothing else." After saying this, Xiao Yang felt his face flush with embarrassment. Hearing Xiao Yang's words, Ju Chao immediately understood. It seemed Xiao Yang was worried he might inadvertently spill the beans when he got home. But thinking about it, Ju Chao also understood Xiao Yang's concern. Whether it was the Xiao family or the Jiang family, they were quite strict in terms of upbringing, and the simplest rule was not allowing any mischief outside. If he accidentally let slip, they might end up being whipped with an 82 belt. Jiang Yu snapped out of his daze and said nervously, "Xiao Chao, you mustn't tell Jiang Li about this." "Don't worry, I won't tell Jiang Li. You two can rest assured." Ju Chao reassured them. Hearing Ju Chaos' assurance, Xiao Yang nodded. He knew Ju Chao was reliable and wouldn't joke about such matters. "All right, let's head back. It's already 10 o'clock. Ju Chao nodded and then got into his car, giving a nod to the two before driving away. Watching the Rolls-Royce merge into the traffic, Jiang Yu sighed. Who would have thought that the sapling from before has grown into a big tree now? Even I have to rely on his shade to shelter from the wind and rain. A big tree has already become a towering tree. If nothing unexpected happens, in the future, both of our families will follow Ju Chaos' lead." Thinking of recent observations and some things his grandfather had hinted at, he understood that Ju Chao was the future pillar of both the Xiao and Jiang families. How is that possible? Jiang Yu looked at Xiao Yang in shock, his mouth gaping wide enough to fit a big green mango. Xiao Yang didn't explain much, just patted his shoulder lightly and said, "Your training in the special forces was also to temper your character, to grow up as soon as possible and shoulder responsibilities in the future." After saying this, Xiao Yang didn't pay much attention to the stunned Jiang Yu, just got into his car and drove away. A cold wind blew by, and Jiang Yu snapped out of his daze. He didn't know what he had realized, But there was something different in his eyes now, a sense of responsibility called duty. Looking up at the sky, he noticed snowflakes drifting down. Back at home, Ju Chao found Jiang Li still sitting on the sofa watching TV. "You're back." Jiang Li stood up from the sofa as soon as she saw Ju Chao return. "Hey, be careful. You should sit still on the sofa. Next time, don't stand up so quickly." Ju Chao jogged over and pushed Jiang Li back onto the sofa. "I know. Ouch." Jiang Li's smile twisted into a grimace. Hearing Jiang Li's cry, Ju Chao instantly felt his scalp tingle, his expression nervous as he asked, "What's wrong, Ali?" Jiang Li forced a smile and said, "Brother Chao, don't worry, everything's fine. The baby just kicked me." As she spoke, she lovingly stroked her large belly. Upon hearing this, Ju Chaos' originally tense heart immediately relaxed. He playfully extended his right hand to caress Jiang Li's belly and said, "Little one, if you keep kicking your mom's belly, when you come out, see how I'll deal with you." Jiang Li chuckled heartily, her previous discomfort disappearing completely. Watching Ju Chao press his ear against her belly, Jiang Li couldn't help but reach out and stroke his head. Feeling the tender touch on his head, Ju Chao lifted his head to look at Jiang Li. Their eyes met, and both could see the anticipation for their baby in each other's eyes. The tragedy of the Imperial Palace lease: if you want to kill him, just do it. "There's no need to perform for me," Chu Yihan said with an indifferent expression. He didn't care about the Empress' intention to kill Chu Mingyuan, nor did he intend to save him. Instead, his attention was drawn to the person lying on a bed placed beside the dragon throne. It was Chu Changye. After months of no sighting, he seemed to be even more ill than Chu Mingyuan, his face as pale as a corpse's, froth at his mouth, and mumbling incoherently. Chu Yihan couldn't hear clearly, nor was he interested in listening anymore. Seeing that he was unmoved, the Empress raised her hand and stabbed a hole in Chu Mingyuan's arm. "Ah! Ah!" Chu Mingyuan cried out in agony, his expression distorted with pain. Unable to struggle, he could only shed tears while emitting pitiful screams. Chu Yihan set the Qingfeng sword on the ground, folded his arms, and spoke with the same indifference. "Do you dare to plot the murder of the Emperor, wishing to die along with your son?" "No." The Empress screamed. Wild-eyed and disheveled, her appearance was ghastly, her gaze fervent and frenzied. "I can die, the Emperor can die. Everyone in this world can die. But my son, he cannot." With one hand, she forcibly lifted the immobilized Chu Mingyuan, holding him as a threat to Chu Yihan. "Chu Yihan, I want you to heal my ear. Your woman, Su Yingxue, she is a genius doctor. The court physicians in the palace and the doctors from the people can't heal what she can. She must be able to cure him." Chu Yihan's lips parted slightly, uttering just two words, "Dream on." Chu Changye wasn't even worthy to carry Su Yingxue's shoes. And she was to heal him? Don't think that the Emperor is useless now. You may not care about his life or death, but what about the subjects under the heavens? Don't they care? The Empress was emotional, and, not controlling her strength well, she plunged the dagger deeper into Chu Mingyuan's body. Woo! Woo! Chu Mingyuan, unable to speak, could only let out even more piercing screams. No one would have imagined that the Emperor, once so high above, had fallen to such a wretched state. Chu Yihan had no interest in wasting time with them and picked up his sword to leave. "Stop! Chu Yihan. If you dare to walk out of here, I will kill the Emperor. Then I will commit suicide with Ye. The people I have arranged outside the palace are already prepared. The news that you forced us, mother and sons, to our deaths will spread immediately, and by then, if you wish to secure this throne, dream on. The subjects under the heavens will not accept you, and more traitors will stir up chaos. The great Cheng dynasty is troubled both internally and externally, it cannot withstand such turbulence. You must agree to my demand, let Su Yingxue cure Ye." The Empress, holding the dagger, cried hysterically. Chu Yihan was her last hope. Only he could make Su Yingxue take action, only Su Yingxue could save Ye, her beloved son. "Mother, don't." Chu Changye struggled to let out indistinct sounds. The Empress understood, but her heart ached even more. She held Chu Changye and wept ceaselessly, Yeah, Mother must save you. You must live. Mother can die. Mother can die 1,000 times over for you. But you must live. Ah. The Empress was not the proud figure she once was. At that moment, she was just a powerless mother using the last of her strength to protect her beloved son. Chu Yihan looked at the Empress and coldly replied to her, "Your plan is not bad, but I, Your Highness, don't need to be threatened by you." Chu Yihan's indifference lease. Why? Impossible. You can't be impervious to threats, unless you no longer wish to secure your throne. The Empress pointed a dagger at Chu Yihan, her face twisted in ferocity. Chu Yihan's Qingfeng sword was raised, and with just the flash of its unsheathed blade, it knocked the dagger from the Empress' hand. Clatter. On the black, glossy marble floor, it made a crisp sound. Chu Yihan walked up to her, looking down from above. "Even if you three die, Your Highness' reputation will remain unharmed. The people outside the palace, under your command, are now in my control. Should any traitor cause chaos, I shall quell it myself." As for the internal and external troubles of the great Cheng dynasty, his gaze grew even colder. "Years of my effort have culminated not just in this throne. I have raised an army of 1,000,000 strong soldiers. Across the 9 continents, as long as I live, no one will dare invade the great Cheng dynasty, or else they will share the same fate as Qi state annihilation. This time, Qi state's incursion into the territory of the great Cheng dynasty will be repaid with their disappearance from the 9 continents within 3 years." The words of Chu Yihan drained all strength from the Empress' body. She fell to the ground like a doll. Her plan had failed, and Chu Chengye was beyond saving. Chu Chengye heard this too, feeling angry, ashamed, and utterly disgraced. Chu Yihan's illustrious achievements only highlighted how incompetent this once proud prince was. It was an even greater blow to Chu Mingyuan. He used his last bit of strength to slump into the dragon throne. This was the throne he had schemed to take from his brother, having killed Chu Yihan's mother to secure it after years of plotting. But sitting on that throne for years, he never knew that Chu Yihan had amassed an army of 1,000,000 mighty soldiers. What a colossal force that was! With nothing but the throne, he failed to fulfill the emperor's duty to protect his nation and subjects. How empty was his reign on the dragon throne! How inept indeed! Tears of self-reproach and frustration slid from the corners of Chu Mingyuan's eyes. He closed his eyes and let out a breath. His body slowly slid down from the dragon throne. When Chu Yihan emerged, Su Yingxue had arrived as well. She was dressed in a crimson luo skirt, her hair neatly done up, with a jeweled golden hairpin peeking out, its red tassels swaying in the breeze, accentuating the smile in her eyes, making her even more radiant. She lifted her skirt and rushed toward Chu Yihan, intending to throw herself into his arms. But remembering they were in the palace, surrounded by many people, Su Yingxue gracefully curtsied instead. "Greetings, Your Highness. Congratulations on your return to court." Although it had been only a few days since she last saw Chu Yihan, in her heart, it felt like an entire season had passed. She couldn't wait to leap onto him, to cuddle and embrace him. "Millimeter, rise," he said. Chu Yihan's words felt like a bucket of cold water poured over her. Su Yingxue's heart chilled as she looked at Chu Yihan uncertainly. She wanted to ask if he was still angry about the Qin Muyan incident. She had thought it over and was ready to explain. She no longer wanted to hold a grudge against him. But Chu Yihan, looking completely worn out, said, "You are the princess. The harem is your responsibility. Go, pay a visit to noble consort Xiao." Su Yingxue responded with an "oh," and then Chu Yihan whispered a few matters of business into her ear for her to attend to. Without any complaints, Su Yingxue nodded. "I understand. I will go right away." But, Your Highness, she wanted him to wait for her to finish so that they could have a proper talk. The interesting noble consort Xiao Lise. Chu Yihan rubbed his tired brows and eyes. "Military affairs are numerous and I will have to stay in the military camp for a few days." That is to say, he wouldn't be returning to the prince's mansion to stay for these days. She didn't know whether he was truly that busy or if he was avoiding her. Su Yingxue always felt that Chu Yihan's aloofness towards her, seemingly there yet not, was as if he was avoiding something. "Auntie, let's go." Chu Jinling pursed his lips, glancing in the direction of the harem. He still had to accompany his young aunt to visit his mother. Inside noble consort Xiao's palace. On the luxurious and extravagant imperial consort's chaise lounge, noble consort Xiao reclined elegantly, her indolent glance exuding an imposing elegance. Upon seeing Su Yingxue enter, she slowly rose. "Her Majesty has seen the 9th princess consort. You are courteous." Noble consort Xiao's polite demeanor surprised Su Yingxue, who quickly stepped forward to support her. "Imperial consort, you are too kind." But noble consort Xiao lightly took her hand with a smile in her eyes. "Such proprieties are only proper. After all, the world will be the 9th prince's soon, and as princess consort, you will be above the entire harem. As for this consort, being lucky enough to survive is already good, so naturally I must be courteous towards you." What she said. It was as if after Chu Yihan ascended the throne, she, noble consort Xiao, would have to watch Su Yingxue's face. Su Yingxue forced a smile. "It may not be so. With the consort's insight, even if you become the Empress Dowager, no one would dare to offend you. Hence, you took the initiative to handle the issue at the palace gates involving the Empress people, sparing His Highness the trouble." Pleasing Chu Yihan was why he let her come see her. Her personal visit as the 9th princess consort was also to give noble consort Xiao peace of mind. Noble consort Xiao lifted her flowing silk veil, a charming fragrance wafting from within it. Her face bore a radiant smile. "Her Majesty knows that the 9th prince and princess consort are reasonable. In the future, my son and I will rely on the emperor and empress." She preemptively referred to them as the emperor and empress, something no one else would dare to do. But noble consort Xiao was always calculating and easygoing, so Su Yingxue wasn't too surprised. With nothing else to do, she sat down and started chatting leisurely with noble consort Xiao. "With the consort's wisdom, I'm sure His Highness won't treat you or the Xiao family unfairly." Over the years, noble consort Xiao had not opposed Chu Yihan, and the Xiao family had provided much convenience in military matters. Irrespective of her status, Chu Yihan would treat them well. Especially Chu Jinling. Su Yingxue's gaze fell on the handsome young man, his figure bathed in the sunlight that scattered golden sparkles on him, highlighting his already pale skin, making his features seem even more gentle and agreeable. Noble consort Xiao picked up the scroll in her hand and lazily leaned back on her chaise lounge, her whole body emanating a noble aura. "If it weren't for my age, I would have married the 9th prince. As for Linga, he too will have the destiny of an emperor." Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow, suddenly feeling the urge to laugh. "With your Majesty's skill, if you had taken a fancy to the 9th prince, you might indeed have been a formidable rival." Noble consort Xiao was different from those vulgar and cheap women who had fancied Chu Yihan before. If she started to make her moves and use her intellect, Su Yingxue wasn't sure she could handle everything. Taking her seriously, noble consort Xiao said, "That's quite possible. If Linga were to become the heir to the 9th prince, he might now be. He wouldn't have the fate to become emperor. Mother, let go of this hope. In the past, the world belonged to father and 7th brother. In the future, it will belong to imperial uncle. As for me, I just want to write books and live a carefree life." Waiting for Chu Yihan lease. Why bother becoming an emperor? It's all worry and haste to an early grave. Isn't it better to live a long and healthy life with the one you love? Chu Jinling shattered noble consort Xiao's fantasy, and she heaved a sigh. Never mind, I was just joking with your imperial aunt. Go play. Auntie, come play with me too. Mother and I are sick of all the glittering treasures in this palace. Come on. Chu Jinling took Su Yingxue by the hand and left, not caring about how noble consort Xiao was left behind in the palace. As Su Yingxue ran out of the palace with him, she asked with a curious expression, "You're just leaving your mother behind? Aren't you worried she'll be lonely?" In her mind, the women of the harem fought tooth and nail for favor and power. It was hardly an easy life. Of course, it wasn't easy for noble consort Xiao to become a woman of the imperial palace for the sake of her family either. And her conversation with Su Yingxue was quite interesting. However, Chu Jinling quickly corrected her impression. "My mother is never alone." "Never alone?" Su Yingxue narrowed her eyes slightly, looking at Chu Jinling with suspicion. Her gaze made Chu Jinling feel uneasy, but considering his father had served his time as emperor, he simply told Su Yingxue, "My mother has a secret passage in the palace through which she can leave. She doesn't care whether the emperor favors her or not, she enjoys her freedom on the outside, and honestly, she has more fun than my father ever could." In his opinion, his mother as imperial consort was living a life far happier than his father as the emperor. Surprise flickered in Su Yingxue's eyes. "Noble consort Xiao, has a tunnel? Wait. The crew that your cousin formed, it was to serve your mother, wasn't it? So capable, able to dig tunnels and burrow through anywhere. Digging a tunnel out of the imperial palace seemed like no tough feat for them. Right. After she gave birth to me and was promoted to imperial consort, her position was secure. And with all the money she had, why would she willingly confine herself to the palace for life? She's always been free-spirited and unrestrained," he said, casually flipping his hair with a satisfied smile on his face. Seeing his demeanor, Su Yingxue was no longer overly surprised by noble consort Xiao's actions. After all, money can enable all manner of desires. Plus, noble consort Xiao lived such a clear and unrestrained life, which seemed to rub off on Chu Jinling as well. "Jinling, be honest with me, when you were a child, did you ever sneak out of the palace with your mother to play?" "Of course. When I skipped classes and went to my mother's, she would take me to the gambling den. Together, we won quite a bit of silver." "Who else do you think taught me how to gamble?" Chu Jinling winked, making Su Yingxue even more envious. If only Long Shuli hadn't left so early, she might have enjoyed herself more than even noble consort Xiao. After leaving the palace, Su Yingxue returned to the 9th prince's mansion. Although Chu Yihan indulged her, letting her stay at the Marquise Manor or the prince's mansion, she was conscious of her status as a married woman, so she chose to remain at her husband's house, waiting for him to come back. The old steward was overjoyed to see her, and the whole prince's mansion wept tears of happiness in her presence for half an hour. She comforted each of them before returning to the courtyard she shared with Chu Yihan as newlyweds. Everything was kept just as it was on their wedding day, with the red silk and glass lanterns lining the courtyard glowing at dusk, a breathtaking sight. Su Yingxue lay on the wedding bed where the thoughtful steward had placed items like red dates and peanuts before her return, just like on the night of the wedding. Rolling on the bed and munching on red dates, Su Yingxue felt an increasing sense of loss. Chu Yihan hadn't returned, and she had no idea when he would. Do not suspect His Highness Lise, he hadn't wanted to see her these past few days. The military camp was a vital place, and given the lesson he had taught her previously when she rashly intruded, she didn't dare attempt it again. She could only wait in the prince's mansion. After 5 days passed, Su Yingxue still hadn't seen Chu Yihan and returned to the Marquise Manor. She needed to report Wu Jinyan's situation to her grandfather and, incidentally, inquire what Chu Yihan was busied with in the military camp. Su Qingji found her return somewhat strange. "Why have you only come back to the manor today?" Su Yingxue explained, "I've been staying in the prince's mansion for a few days, hoping to wait for His Highness to return, but these days he has been busy in the camp and not even his shadow could be seen." Su Yingxue walked over and supported Su Qingji's arm as they strolled together in the garden. The garden of the Marquise Manor was majestic and grand, with rocks and spring water, all very natural and refreshing. Especially since Su Qingji's return, he grew fonder of the natural wilderness, planting many trees in the manor. As a result, there was an increased sense of wilderness, albeit with fewer birdsong and floral fragrances. Breathing in the fresh air of the woods, Su Qingji felt a great ease of mind. "I only returned from the military camp yesterday. His Highness is working hard to reorganize the army. It's likely he decided to rest there to avoid the back and forth travel." As a military man, Su Qingji naturally had a deep understanding of these matters. But Su Yingxue still felt uneasy inside. "I always feel that His Highness is avoiding me, perhaps because I bothered him last time." "Don't talk nonsense." Su Qingji reproached her firmly. "His Highness has put a lot of effort into you and our Su family. If you doubt him again, I will have to teach you a lesson." The tone of Su Qingji's voice was not loud, but it was very serious. What's troubling His Highness now is that there are still spies in the army who have not been found out yet. This is a major hidden danger. Even though His Highness has returned to the court, Qi state is inevitably going to be incorporated into the territory of the great Cheng dynasty. Now that the Prince of Liao is dead, it seems like His Highness is withdrawing the troops, but there are still 50,000 soldiers guarding the border. Once he ferrets out those spies, His Highness will definitely strike hard. With Su Qingji's emphasis on the last word, Su Yingxue suddenly understood, so that's it. Isn't His Highness then? Quite exhausted. Su Qingji patted her hand, so, don't take it to heart. His Highness is currently investigating the military spies, not because he has any dissatisfaction with you. Moreover, in the future, Su Qingji glanced around, this heavy responsibility of the world will also fall on His Highness' shoulders. You should bear this in mind. Su Yingxue nodded. I understand, Grandpa. She continued walking with Su Qingji, feeling a deeper sense of understanding for Chu Yihan, yet she missed him even more. But as they walked, they encountered Lu Ying. By her side, Su Hao supported her, asking quietly, Miss Lu, do you feel your injury is any better today? Lu Ying yearned to lean on him, and even though Su Hao was very proper, she took the excuse of her inconvenience to hold onto his arm, consenting to move forward slowly. This scene greatly angered Su Yingxue. She thought of Wu Jinyang in the back courtyard of the Thousand Jiao Pavilion and wanted to go up and pull Lu Ying away. Understanding her thoughts, Su Qingji led her around a corner, directing them to another part of the garden, and also showed his concern. Grandpa asked you to look into some things. Did you find out? What happened between that miss from the Wu family and your brother? Su Yingxue bit her lip. She knew what had happened, but if she told her grandpa now, he might definitely refuse to allow Wu Jinyang to marry Su Hao. So she said, Sister Jinyang is ill. When I went to see her the other day, she looked unwell. It's probably because brother hurried back, and she didn't have the strength to cope, which must have led to some misunderstanding between them. Su Qingji had originally thought that if Wu Jinyang and Su Hao didn't get along well, and if Su Hao agreed, he could marry Lu Ying. But now, hearing what Su Yingxue said, he weighed his options and decided that Su Hao's happiness was more important. If Lu Ying were to suffer and become Su Hao's concubine, it wouldn't hurt to treat her generously in the Marquise manner later on. Thus, Su Qingji no longer worried about Su Hao's affair. After all, both he and Su Yingxue, the brother and sister, were people of strong resolve. Having returned to his study, he immersed himself in military books once more. Su Yingxue lingered outside the garden. She needed to talk to Su Hao about the matter concerning Wu Jinyang. Jilan had returned with her and after gathering some information, reported to her, Miss Han said that since the Lu family doesn't have a residence in Jiangdu City, that's why Miss Lu Ying is recuperating in our Marquise manor. And her father, General Lu, has been staying in the military camp. This arrangement was approved by the old general, and Miss Lu Ying has been pestering the eldest young master every day. With the eldest young master's good nature and considering her injuries, he has not rejected her. After speaking, Jilan looked puzzled. Our family's eldest young master, although gentle, is certainly not a man easily entangled by a woman. Now, with this Lu Ying, the servants in the manor all think she's going to become our young madam. Their child lease. The position of the young madam at the Marquise manor is not one that just anyone can casually assume. A sharp glint flickered in Su Yingxue's eyes. She had no good feelings for Lu Ying to date, and harbored deep suspicions towards her. Even though Lu Ying had taken a knife for her, during the days they spent in the cave, she knew Su Hao's heart wasn't with her, yet she still clung to him desperately, even deliberately losing the handkerchief Wu Jinyang had given Su Hao. She had clearly warned her of the handkerchief's significance. The setup against Su Hao at the Bamboo Leaf Pass remains to be investigated. Su Yingxue waited for Su Hao to send Lu Ying back to her room, and then waited for him at the courtyard gate. Brother! Su Yingxue called out softly. Su Hao, in low spirits, wore a saddened look on his handsome face. Only when he saw Su Yingxue did a light appear in his eyes. Sister, you're back. How was your time at the prince's mansion? Has His Highness been treating you well? After returning, he had been suspended pending investigation. Although the prince had not overly pursued his lapse in responsibility, he had been instructed not to return to the military camp for the time being. His only fear was that his own troubles might adversely affect Su Yingshu's standing in Chu Yihan's heart. With a smile in her eyes and a face as blooming as the peach blossoms of spring that carpeted the mountains and fields, Su Yingshu reassured, "Brother, you don't need to worry. His Highness loves me and won't let anyone affect our feelings. So you should stop blaming yourself too." Reassured by her words, Su Hao felt relieved. Remembering that Su Yingshu was close with Wu Jinyang, he couldn't help asking, "Have you visited Sister Jinyang since you've been back?" Su Yingshu nodded honestly, "I've visited her. I urged her to start taking her medicine and eating. With Sister Han's concern over these past days, her health should gradually improve. And her child?" Su Hao urgently wanted to ask about the child, but the rest of the words choked in his throat, unable to be voiced. Su Yingshu understood that the child was a pain in both their hearts, but it was a matter that needed to be resolved. Sister Jinyang couldn't bring herself to terminate the pregnancy. "Brother, about her and you?" Su Yingshu's eyes queried. He was filled with a sense of powerlessness and defeat, and even his obsidian-like eyes had lost their usual luster. He sat dejectedly under the porch. "That child makes me feel so incompetent. If only I had noticed her arrival, if only I could have protected her, she wouldn't have experienced such an ordeal. Later, I didn't take care of her promptly and instead yelled at her, lost my temper with her." Su Hao was full of regret. His many years of affection with Wu Jinyang had become tainted due to his momentary impulse. Brother still loves Sister Jinyang, but brother, I must remind you, if there is this child, you and Sister Jinyang will need to consider it very carefully. As the legitimate daughter of the Marquis household and now the 9th Princess Consort, Su Yingshu was all too clear that a woman pregnant with another man's child could never secure her position as the mistress of a household. The child would be a lifelong stain. She and the child would both suffer greatly. I failed to protect her. If she wishes to keep the child, I will not stop her, but Su Hao's wife, in this life, must be only her. Su Hao's eyes were resolute, heavy like a 1,000-pound rock within. Unshakable. Encouraged by Su Yingshu, Su Hao gathered up his courage and went to the 1,000-jiao pavilion to see Wu Jinyang. Wu Jinyang's health seemed to have improved, her complexion appeared rosier under the sunlight. Having not left the house for months, she now stood in the courtyard, letting the sunlight bathe her, feeling the warmth of early spring. "He can accept her child lease." She stretched out her hand, and a petal fell into her palm. The petal had already withered considerably, with only half an inch left intact, showing how delicate and beautiful it had once been. Wu Jinyang felt a sudden sinking in her heart. She was just like this petal. She had thought she could bloom beautifully on her own after breaking free from the constraints of her family, but in the end, she couldn't withstand the ravages of time. "Younger, even though there's sunshine, the weather is still quite chilly. You should wear an extra piece of clothing when you go out." The man's voice, smooth as pearls and jade, rang out, and his slender fingers draped a piece of clothing over Wu Jinyang, bringing her a surge of warmth. Wu Jinyang instinctively shielded her belly, wanting to avoid him. "Younger." Su Hao pulled her back, as if afraid of hurting her. He just gently held her hand. "Don't go. I came today to talk to you in detail about the child in your belly." Wu Jinyang's face turned pale. "About the child? Do you still want me to get rid of it?" "I do not. I won't let you do that. If you can't bear to, then keep it. I will raise him as our child." Su Hao hurriedly revealed his plans, fearing she would flee. "Our child?" Wu Jinyang's heart trembled fiercely, her eyes wide with disbelief. "The child? You still want to marry me?" "Of course. Our marriage was already agreed upon. Do you still want to back out?" Su Hao's grip tightened, as if he feared Wu Jinyang would retreat, and he wanted to lock her in his embrace. Wu Jinyang trembled gently. "But this child's origins are unclear. I don't even know who that person is." "You don't need to know." Su Hao growled softly, a hint of bloodshot crossing his eyes. The next moment, however, he hugged Wu Jinyang tightly, his voice deep and powerful. "That person will never appear in front of you again. From now on, you are the young madam of Marquise Manor, and your child is the son of Marquise Manor. Wu Jinyang shook her head desperately, not daring to believe, this cannot be. If it is like this, it can be. Jinyang, believe me, there's nothing, no one that can separate us. Su Hao's sturdy arms embraced Wu Jinyang, the force strong yet careful not to make her uncomfortable due to her pregnancy. Leaning in his arms, Wu Jinyang could no longer hold back her tearful eyes. Su Hao. I'm sorry. If only she had told him earlier, when she found him at Bamboo Leaf Pass, maybe she wouldn't have encountered such an incident. There is nothing to apologize for, Jinyang. It's my fault for not protecting you well. Now that we both have returned from Bamboo Leaf Pass, let's forget the unpleasant memories of that place. Su Hao gently stroked Wu Jinyang's eyebrows and eyes, the smile on his lips tender. Wu Jinyang leaned in his embrace and talked with Su Hao for a long time. Spending these days shut in her room, the suffocating depression she felt was all poured out. She believed the sunlight tomorrow would surely be brilliant. Seeing the two of them reconcile, Su Yingxue also felt very relieved. Standing to one side, Su Han, with eyes like precious gems, was slightly incredulous. Although I had thought that Su Hao and Jinyan's feelings for each other were beyond comparison, his acceptance of Jinyan's child was truly unexpected. Affected by Su Yingxue, Su Han's thinking had gradually modernized. But she hadn't forgotten where she was, the Marquise Manor, a place strict with rules and rights. Su Hao's ability to accept a child not of his own blood showed how deeply he loved Wu Jinyang. For the sake of love, he was willing to disregard everything. Call out Haina Lise, Su Yingxue smacked her lips. Accepting this child is indeed difficult, and if I were brother, I'd surely find it hard to make a decision too. But for brother, sister Jinyang is the one and only woman in this world, irreplaceable, so even if she has been bullied, brother will only pity her, not abandon her because of it. But have you ever considered, what if grandfather finds out? We might accept it, but would grandfather accept it? Would the clan elders of Marquise Manor and the civil and military officials throughout the great Cheng dynasty and its citizens look at them kindly? Su Han felt that the modern world Su Yingxue's mother came from must have been a colorful one, perhaps much more tolerant of situations like Wu Jinyan's, and if they were capable, they could silence all gossip, and nobody could interfere with their lives. Yet in their 9 continents, the great Cheng dynasty could not afford such freedom. Simply for Su Hao's future and reputation, they had no idea how much suffering they'd have to endure. Su Yingxue's expression suddenly turned solemn. Grandpa is so fond of my mother, if we explain it to him carefully, we should be able to move him. However, getting the opinion of the clan elders and court officials is going to be troublesome. This was indeed a concern for Su Han, and it was exceedingly thorny. Their Marquise Manor could not cover the sky with one hand, disregarding everything. Su Yingxue planned to think of a solution after heading back. She coincidentally encountered Song Chengyi when she stepped out with Su Han. He had brought a carriage to pick up Su Han. Upon seeing Su Yingxue, he knelt down to greet her. This subordinate pays his respects to the 9th princess consort. General Song, there is no need for ceremony. Su Yingxue smiled faintly, as she had already heard about Song Chengyi's military achievements and promotion. Although it was not yet official, Su Yingxue was happy to start calling him General Song in advance. Song Chengyi seemed a bit surprised, but Su Yingxue's way of addressing him seemed to add a sense of responsibility onto him. The princess holds me in high regard, I will definitely protect the eldest young miss. What's this, you still call me eldest young miss? You're both getting married, wouldn't calling her Haina not be too much? Su Yingxue teased him with all seriousness. This would be inappropriate. It would tarnish Miss' reputation before the engagement is formalized. Song Chengyi spoke with stringent adherence to propriety. Su Yingxue was silently impressed. He truly loved Su Han. My reputation isn't something you need to be so concerned with. Are you tired today? Su Han said, walking up to Song Chengyi and lightly touching his forehead. As she withdrew her hand, she saw the sweat on her fingers and slightly furrowed her brows. Why are you sweating? Song Chengyi honestly replied, there was some delay due to matters in the military, but I was worried you would be waiting, so I urged the horses a bit faster. A sweet feeling touched Su Han's heart, and she gently wiped the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. There's no need to hurry next time, I don't mind waiting. Song Chingyi did not speak but fetched a step stool for her and Su Yingxue to get into the carriage. Seeing this, Su Yingxue hurriedly waved her hand. I rode Chushin here, so I won't join sister in the carriage. Confused, Su Han frowned. Chushin? It's a precious horse I brought back from the Great Wei dynasty. Although it's not as luxurious as your carriage, it'll surely reach home before you. Su Yingxue teased Su Han with a wink and then went to fetch her horse. Shaking her head and sighing, Su Han lamented, if it weren't for being the 9th princess consort, that boldness to ride a horse on the streets would scare off many noble young masters. His sincere lovelease, Su Yingxue flew past them on her horse like a swiftly passing cloud, beautiful and brilliant, yet disappearing quickly. Song Chingyi came over to help Su Han mount the horse. Let's go, Haina. His voice was thick and hoarse, always sounding as if it had been burned, but when he called out Haina, it was exceptionally gentle. Surprised, Su Han gave him a glance, to which Song Chingyi immediately responded, may I not call you that? Though he followed proper decorum in Su Yingxue's presence, in private, he still had his own selfish desires. Su Han nodded with a warm smile like the spring breeze in March. Of course you may, General. From now on, please call me Haina. Good, good. Song Chingyi replied twice, unable to hide the eagerness in his eyes. Su Han sat inside the carriage, leaning against the window, talking to him. General, Haina has a question for you. Speak. If I were carrying another man's child, would you still love me, would you still marry me? Su Han's words had a probing intention. In fact, it was spoken after seeing Su Hao with Wu Jinyang. Song Chengyi's actions in driving the carriage did not pause for a moment as he answered without hesitation, yes, I would marry you and treat you and the child kindly. His reply was so natural that Su Han almost couldn't believe it. But the child isn't yours, and not only would you be laughed at by others, but it would also affect your reputation and even prompt the clan elders to obstruct you and force you to separate from me. In her speech, Su Han sounded almost desperate, as if she was truly pregnant. This time, Song Chingyi hesitated. As Su Han waited and heard no reply, she thought to clarify, General, I am not with child, Haina. Song Chingyi pulled the carriage to a stop, and after the whooshing sound of the wind by his ears subsided, he spoke earnestly, regardless if you are pregnant or not, I will marry you. To be able to marry you is the luck of my lifetime. As for the clan elders and my reputation, I am alone, without a clan or relatives, and my official position is not high, no one will care. If you are willing, I will certainly look after your child well. Soft, gentle laughter came from inside the carriage, causing Song Chingyi to suddenly stop. Su Han pulled aside the curtain and revealed a delicate face. General, I am not pregnant. Song Chingyi was stunned. Beneath the iron mask, his eyes seemed a little lost. Then why did you say earlier, if you were pregnant? Because I wanted to see just how much the general loves me. Su Han shyly bit her lip, her pearly white teeth leaving a mark on her lips from the pressure. Song Chengyi's heart stirred, and he involuntarily drew closer to those appealing pink lips. A wave of warm breath hit her face, and Su Han was startled, trying to push him away in panic, but Song Chingyi only touched her lips with his hand, freeing the tender pinkness from under her teeth. Seeing the bite mark on her lips, he finally felt a pang of distress, and with a hoarse voice, he said, Don't bite. He was heartbroken. Okay. Su Han softly agreed, her cheeks flushing red like the twilight sky, intoxicated by his heavy breaths. Song Chengyi continued to drive the carriage to take her back to the manor. He never overstepped his boundaries, even when there were no people around, he was always polite to her, and even his use of Haina today had been prompted by Su Yingxue and said with her consent, tentatively. Such cherishment touched Su Han. When she returned to the Marquise manor and saw Qin Wn with a frown, she felt even more confident in persuading her. Persuading Su Qingji Lise, in the Marquise manor, Su Hao came back the latest and missed the evening meal. When he came to the front hall to greet Su Qingji asked, "Where did you go today?" It wasn't that he wanted to restrict Su Hao's freedom at his age, but today Lu Ying came to pay her respects, and her wound had split open a little. The place was full of men who couldn't help her, and with a sigh, Lu Ying said that if Su Hao had been there, he could have supported her. This made him sink into an old face, feeling somewhat sorry. At the dining table, with Lu Ying also sitting together, he asked in front of her. Lu Ying's eyes shone with light, her smile faint. He must have gone to train at the military camp. Even though the general has been suspended, he is still concerned about the soldiers. Her words sounded pleasant, flattering Su Qingji just right and letting him feel Su Hao's steadiness and regret. Su Qingji stroked his beard and chuckled. But Su Hao straightforwardly said, "No, the military camp is a secure place, and being suspended, I shouldn't enter without permission. I went to Thousand Jiao Pavilion to see Jinyang." He knew Lu Ying's thoughts about him, and since the whole family was there, he simply told them, letting Lu Ying hear as well. Lu Ying's face immediately blanched, and her hands under the table clenched into fists instinctively, her sharp nails inadvertently cutting her fingers. Su Qingji had heard Su Hao mention Wu Jinyang before and casually asked, "Is the miss doing well? I heard there was some misunderstanding between you two before, has it been cleared up now?" Su Hao nodded with a smile on his face. "Thank you, grandfather, for your concern. Jinyang and I have made up, and I was thinking about discussing with grandfather when you are free. I would like to bring Jinyang to meet you, and have my wife-to-be offer you a cup of tea. After the tea ceremony, he would ask grandfather to start planning the wedding for them." Seeing Su Hao happy, Su Qingji felt a touch of regret that he didn't like Lu Ying, but he was also happy for him. Su Hao had always been diligent and humble since childhood, rarely showing his emotions on his face. Now, unable to hide his joy, it was clear how much he loved that girl. Su Qingji also nodded, "I am free these next 2 days, you find a time to bring her to let me have a look. I should also have a taste of my grandson's wife's tea." Su Hao was excited, "Really? Good, grandfather. I'll bring her tomorrow to see you." "Tomorrow? You're in quite a hurry." Su Qingji laughed and teased. "How can brother not be in a hurry? My uncle's second and third brothers are already married, and I am married too, but brother's wife is not yet settled. Of course, he also hopes to get married soon." Su Yingxue chimed in from the side, conveniently bringing up Su Hao's marriage. Considering that Lu Ying was beside him, Su Qingji didn't speak directly, only nodding, it's time to consider it." This family's conversation, full of happiness, made Lu Ying feel cold and distant. She slowly stood up and said to Su Qingji, "Old general, my body feels unwell, so we'll go back to rest early." Su Qingji nodded affectionately, "All right, if there is any issue with your wound, send someone to find Yingxue. With her here, your wound will certainly heal." Su Yingxue also promised, "I will certainly do my best to heal Miss Lu's wounds, especially the scars on Miss Lu's back. They will heal as new, leaving no marks." Lu Ying gritted her teeth at this response but had no choice but to endure her emotions and said faintly, "Thank you, 9th Princess Consort, thank you." "You're welcome." Su Yingxue tilted her head and smiled. That is Su Hao's child. Lise. After Lu Ying left, Su Hao finally breathed a sigh of relief. He sat down next to Su Qingji, his expression serious. "Grandpa, actually, I want to bring Jinyang back to meet you, because I want to ask you to prepare our wedding as soon as possible. I am still a man under censure. After marrying Jinyang, even if your highness calls me back to the camp, I will be able to prepare to set out immediately. Otherwise, Jinyang would be delayed because of me." Su Qingji agreed deeply. Indeed, as a man, one must shoulder responsibility and cannot delay a young lady's prime years. "This matter, Grandpa will take care of. Tomorrow, let the old man meet this granddaughter-in-law first. After I open the ancestral hall for her to pay respects to the ancestors, and once we've invited all the elders of the clan, she will become part of the Su family." "Thank you, Grandpa." Su Hao's laughter echoed throughout the front hall. Su Qingji stroked his beard and chuckled, "Look at this, the grandson whom I have taught for so many years, always so composed and steady. But when it comes to marriage, Hez as happy as a child. Su Hao, still with a smile, remained very happy. Grandpa Su Ingshua sat next to Su Qingji with a plop, coquettishly clinging to his arm and casually defending Su Hao. With brother being such a blockhead, it's not easy for him to get married. How can he not be happy? What if sister Jinyang runs away? He would be alone again. Brother is not getting any younger. If we delay further, the children of my second and third brothers will be running around everywhere. The mention of children again touched Su Qingji's soft spot. He looked at Su Hao and Su Ingshua. You two, one is already married, and the other is about to marry. You both need to hurry up for Grandpa. I still have such a strong body and want to teach my great-grandchildren, to pass on military tactics and martial arts to them. In that case, I thank Grandpa on behalf of the children yet to be born. Su Hao lifted his robe and knelt down, very formally. Su Qingji stroked his beard and laughed heartily, his voice like a bell, extremely delighted. Outside the door, Lu Ying was hiding in the shadows. Because it was a family reunion of grandfather and grandchildren within the Marquise Manor, they had no guard up and couldn't imagine that someone would be concealing their presence and eavesdropping within the manor. Therefore, Lu Ying heard all of their conversation. Upon returning to her room, she summoned her secret guard Xian Zhu. Tonight, you will spread the news that Wu Jinyang is pregnant. Make sure everyone in the court, the military, and the streets and alleys knows about her unwed pregnancy. Xian Zhu nodded. Understood. But what if Su Hao insists the child is his? A cold look flashed in Lu Ying's eyes. Even if he is willing to raise a bastard child, old General Su will not allow the Su family bloodline to be tainted. But the child in Wu Jinyan's stomach, it actually is Su Hao's. Shut up. Before Xian Zhu could finish speaking, Lu Ying sharply interrupted her, her expression fierce. If you had not failed in your task, the man with Wu Jinyang that night wouldn't have been Su Hao. Su Hao belongs to me. How could Wu Jinyang be a match for him? What can Wu Jinyang contribute to his future achievements and career? Nothing. She is just a lowly businesswoman who can't even compare to a single hair of mine. Lu Ying, born into the general manor, had deeply ingrained class concepts, with scholars, farmers, artisans, and merchants in a clear hierarchy. Wu Jinyang was originally a daughter of a concubine in her family, who not only neglected her family honor but also left the minister's estate to go into business, which, in Lu Ying's eyes, was self-degradation beyond redemption. Such a woman, she would never allow to tarnish Su Hao. Lu Ying, well-versed in military books and calm and calculating, had long anticipated that with Su Ingshua and Su Hao, the siblings, standing together, and with Su Hao accepting the child in Wu Jinyan's stomach, Su Ingshua would also support her brother. All it would take was telling Su Qingji tomorrow about Wu Jinyan's pregnancy with his grandchild, and Su Qingji would surely organize a wedding for them immediately. But how could she let Wu Jinyang marry Su Hao so easily? Rumors lease. Inside the Thousand Jiao Pavilion, Su Han came to help Wu Jinyang change her clothes. She picked out a light blue wave-patterned skirt for Wu Jinyang, paired with jewelry of the same color series, which made her look dignified and elegant, with a demeanor rare in ordinary women, much like the attire she wore when she used to be the regional princess. As Su Han arranged Wu Jinyan's collar in front of the mirror, she said, "Today is your first time visiting the Marquise Manor to meet Grandfather, and you must carry yourself with dignity and poise. Grandfather prefers women with temperament and grace, so you don't need to worry about dressing too formally for today." Wu Jinyan's delicate brows furrowed as she glanced at her outfit. On her head was the sapphire pearl hairpin, a treasure from the palace, unique in the world, that any discerning person would recognize. "Sister Han, is this really appropriate? It's a bit too showy." Wu Jinyang was still somewhat worried. The future Marquise young madam should be a bit ostentatious. Su Ingshua said loudly, striding in, coming to Wu Jinyan's side, her eyes brightening. "Sister Jinyang, you truly are an elegant and beautiful woman, a rare find in this world." Wu Jinyang bashfully lowered her head. "You, stop teasing me." When it came to beauty, all the women of Jiangdu City combined couldn't compare to Su Ingshua, and here she was, complimenting her. Nevertheless, thinking that Su Ingshua was doing this to put her at ease, she was delighted, holding the hands of her and Su Han, her gaze sincere. If we can become a family in the future, I will surely do well as the Marquise young madam, and won't let you down. Su Yingxue and Su Han were like her sisters. The love that her own family never gave her, they provided. Su Han patted the back of her hand, smiling tenderly. I believe you. She trusted Wu Jinyan's character. Su Yingxue then said, we have never been disappointed in you, Sister Jinyang. If you are done, better hurry out. The Thousand Jiao Pavilion is open, and brother is waiting outside. Wu Jinyang blushed as she replied, checking her attire and makeup repeatedly to ensure there were no issues before she stepped out of the room. However, when she went out, the atmosphere was somewhat tense. How could this be? When I returned home yesterday, the servants didn't know any of these matters. Why does everyone know about it early this morning? Su Han's brows were tightly knitted. Across from her, Su Hao and Su Yingxue had equally furrowed brows. Su Hao shook his head. I don't know why, but the whole city is buzzing with the news today, and even grandfather knows. Su Yingxue and Su Han, one came early to prepare for the shop's business, the other to accompany Wu Jinyang. When the two of them left the house, the streets were empty, and they heard no idle gossip. But now that the streets were crowded and the Thousand Jiao Pavilion opened for business, the rumors of Wu Jinyan's pregnancy were spreading everywhere. At this rate, the whole Jiangdu city would know. Su Qingji could not possibly be unaware. Su Yingxue bit her lip lightly. There must be a traitor in the Marquise manor. It was calm last night. How come today, everywhere on the streets, they were discussing Wu Jinyan's pregnancy? Wu Jinyang overheard their conversation, and nearby, there were people from the Thousand Jiao Pavilion coming and going, also discussing it, their gazes boldly glancing at her stomach. She subconsciously guarded her belly. Yang. Su Hao was the quickest to notice her, dashing to her side, holding her hand, gently embracing her waist, and whispering comforting words. Yang, don't worry, I will protect you. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.